All right, everyone, you know what time it is. It is the Civic Second with Jeff Campbell and Marwan Cameron. So glad that you can join us this morning. Hit the horn. All right, a little bit of housekeeping. Today is my oldest daughter's 29th birthday. Goodness. Go ahead and give applause for her. Now, of course, she doesn't like that because she is Jehovah's Witness, so she does not actually celebrate birthdays, but, happy birthday, Nicoya. All right, so let's go ahead and get into our show. I'm going to bring on our illustrious host here, Jeff Campbell.
Hello. Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. We're talking numbers, so I'm excited.
Oh, well, you know what? I'm excited too. And man, we got a real treat for you today. I mean, it really is a real treat for you today. I can't wait to get into this. Again, I just really appreciate you, Jeff, for taking the time. I mean, this isn't a quick thing, right? Going through the budget, trying to understand it, and then put it in a presentation so the rest of us can digest it. So, man, I just got to say thank you so much for doing that. Good morning, Mr. Dent. How are you doing today? Thank you for joining us. Um, and so, just tell me really quickly as we're getting ourselves set up here, why is understanding the city budget so important?
Yeah, and I would love to speak to that. First of all, right now is really good because right now the city council is diving into the city budget well, they've been starting to talk about it, but now that everybody's really focused on it. So there's been a lot of talk about the budget. And so the way the process goes is that the mayor kind of draws up the initial budget, presents it to with the in conjunction with the city council. I'm a little confused on how that process works exactly, but it's supposed to be the city council directing the really the overall goals and priorities, and then the mayor is the executive who then carries out those plans. But anyways, so they have a 1 year budget, and right now they're talking about it. In October is when they actually present the final budget to the public for comments, and then there's about a month worth of time for comments, and then it's adopted. So now is like when you want to be talking about the budget and changes to the budget. And why is the budget important? The budget, that well, you know what? I would like to lead in with those two clips actually. Um,
All right.
if you got it ready, yeah.
All right. So this is what we're getting into today. Everything you wanted to know about the annual budget for Bremerton, but we're afraid to ask. All right. All right. So let's just go over our agenda
Yeah.
here. This is the weekly meeting recap. So we're going to review the Bremerton 2022 budget. As Jeff was saying, he just answered question number one. Why is the budget important? Budget basics, revenue, who's paying what, expenditures, what are we spending our money on, and then upcoming meetings. Just so you can follow along there. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I was going to say the meeting recap is pretty easy, pretty quick. The study session, we uploaded it to the conduit, so anybody can watch that. My summary of it is there's a lot of talk about street sealants and council member schedules, but they were on for. But if you want to watch that, go ahead and watch that. And then the REACT meeting was canceled, which is interesting. It was canceled due to a lack of quorum, and I'm not sure why that was. But well, I guess that means that not enough people showed up. But I don't know if it has to be. I don't know what the quorum rules are. But I was sorry to see that meeting didn't take place this week. But
Absolutely.
so that's it for the meeting recaps.
All right. So we've got a couple videos here that I'm gonna pull up that kind of go into why budget is important. And so bear with us today because I have to do this in a different way than I normally do. Because technology. Just say it. All right, so let me go ahead and get this here. All right. And let's go ahead and do that. All right. And again, all this information is here for you. If you want the slides, just send us an email, the Conduit Podcast Show at gmail.com, and we will forward those slides to you. So again, they are there for you.
And the budget we'll be talking about today is the 2022 budget, which was approved then last year. We have not. They're obviously working on the 2023 budget. What was I going to say? So that's, anyways, to keep that in mind. So that's, and so I dropped a link which you can share with people. All of this is online, so all the nitty-gritty details are online. You should just go on the city website and find it if you want. I wonder if I can share those graphics. I don't know.
Well, and what's nice is that you've cut these up into digestible bites, right? So
Yeah.
folks don't have to watch the whole thing or search for it, which
Right.
again takes
Yeah.
is labor intensive. So
Yeah.
again, thank you for that. So awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this first one here.
August 10, 2022 Bremerton City Council study session. Nope. That's not it. Not that one. Here. You know what? Hold on. Let me pull up on my end here. Here we go.
Yeah.
Here's the first video.
That's the first one.
Denise Frey.
Okay. How about we do this? You send me the videos in the order. That way it frees up the screen for me.
Okay.
That would be super helpful for me. All right. Oh, that's a really quick one here. Whoops. Yeah, that'd be awesome. All right. Let me go ahead and do this. And share the entire screen there. All right. So this one is a real quickie.
I love budgets because they tell me what the goals and what the priorities are of the city.
All right, so that was Denise Frey there, talking about how she loves budgets.
Yeah, and I think, and it does. The budget tells you what are our priorities as a city. What are our goals? Where and then the other big issue is equity. This is where you really can look at a lot of equity, or should look at a lot of equity issues. And I think, and that's what the next clip is about from
React.
Yes, from React. Aaron Leidick. So.
All right.
That's from last time. So last time we were talking about how do we, as React, get advice to the city council, especially related to the budget for 2023, since that's where a lot of equity issues get implemented. And when we talked about that last meeting, somebody, I can't remember who, said, well, the finance committee is the one that timelines out the budgeting process. And so the action item you took away at the last meeting was that you were going to find out how our advice that we want to give related to the 2023 budget where it would need to fit within the finance committee's timeline for working on that budget document so that we aren't late to be able to give it, so that we don't go to give advice in December and they say, well, we're already too far past for advice like that. You were going to find out where in their timeline we would be able to give advice. God.
And that's huge, right, Jeff?
Yeah. And can I bring up if you can bring up that graphic then the next page? Oops. Okay.
Yep.
Or I can bring it up. Do you want me to share mine or?
You mean from the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going back to that now.
Okay.
All right.
I can't really see the one on the right though. Darn it. It's like blurred out. I wonder what's
Yeah, I don't know why it's blurred out there. Looks like it's got some inappropriate content in there. I know that's not the case.
Right.
What it looks like.
Oh, it's filtering out something because of the okay. So we'll come back to that. Okay. So, anyways, so as we are working through the budget, one of the things is to keep in mind is these ideas and I know everybody's seen these graphics on the left, the equality, equity, justice. How do we look at the budget through that lens? The one on the right is really just we'll get back to that, but it's really showing how the police are the figure on the right is a police officer carrying everything: mental health, carrying let me see what other things are. It says they're a bunch of boulders that say gang violence, drug dealers, school security, prostitution, drug possession, theft, homelessness. And the guy on the left saying, he's saying, defund the police. How is he supposed to carry all that? And then in the bottom picture, it's showing a lot of different people pushing those rocks separately into drug treatment programs, into education, and into job placement, and into housing programs. And so splitting the resources and not putting all your resources into police to solve all of our social issues. So as we go through this budget, I think what we see a very unjust distribution of wealth of tax money, and we also see a heavy emphasis on police. So anyway, so keep that in mind. That is my bias going in, and that was one of the things I was trying. And one of the things when I was looking into this, I was saying, okay, am I wrong about this? Are there social programs? Are there any things that are directed towards the poor or the low income households in Bremerton? Okay, so now we can move on. Now into the dry numbers. But unless you want to go ahead.
Yeah. What I wanted to do was just get into this picture here because we do see this picture all the time. But I think we make the assumption that people have a really good grasp on the difference between equality and equity. So whenever this is up, I always like to talk about it. And I actually haven't seen the one with justice, so this is the first time I've seen it. So equality versus equity. Equality, the assumption is that everyone benefits from the same supports. This is equal treatment. Equity is everyone gets the supports they need. This is the concept of affirmative action, thus producing equity. And so, as you can see there, it's like, hey, we're all equal, so everyone should get a 1 foot stool to stand on. Well, if I'm short, I still can't see over the fence. Uh, Equity means, hey, I need a 2 foot stool so that I can see the game also. But the person in the middle doesn't need a 2 foot stool. They only need a 1 foot stool. And the person on the left doesn't need one at all because they're tall enough to see. And justice is all three can see the game without any supports or accommodations because the causes of the inequity were addressed. The systemic barrier has been removed. So I like that there. And so, yeah, I just wanted to go over that because I think
Thank you.
that's
Thank you.
important. All right, so let's get into these numbers.
Oops, skipped one, I think.
Did it go too fast?
Okay, budget basics. Yes, now I can okay, so where does the money, so basically it's divided into two things. You've got revenue sources, where's the money coming from? And you've got expenditures, what are we spending our money on? The overall budget for both equals. That's I don't know how the accountants do it, but it always equal. No, it's supposed to equal. So total budget $224,964,542. Now, when you're looking at, and then you can see how the different buckets are broken up. One thing to keep in mind, I've got the red circle around it, is so this is extra money. This is beginning fund balance. So at the beginning of the year, um, we have an excess of $71 million. At the end of the year, they're anticipating an extra ending fund balance of $53 million. So there seems to be, I don't know, to me that seems like a lot of money. So why are we holding all these money in reserve? So that's my first question. That seems like a lot of money, especially when we're talking about just, like doing bathrooms downtown or something. So does that make sense on that part?
No, it does. Is some of that, could that be like a rainy day fund?
Yes, and some of it is rainy day, some of it is you want to hold some of it back. And I'm not an accountant. Um, I just $53 million seems like a lot of money. That's all.
It
But you're right.
is a good chunk of change. So
Yeah,
it's like, so what are they gonna do with it?
right,
You
right.
ready for me to go next slide?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so the first part is who is paying and how is that money being paid? Um, So what I did was I took the revenue sources and I broke out the beginning fund, and then I broke out the percentages, excluding the beginning fund, to get a clear picture of the relative percentages of each of these categories. Um, so most 35% of the revenue that's coming in is coming on in through charges for services. You'll see it's like water and trash. Um, Another third, 27%, roughly a third, comes in through taxes, and then another 20 to 30 comes in through other revenue sources. And then you've got, down here at the bottom, you've got license permits and fines and forfeits. Which I'll go into that a little. So I'll go into all these a little bit later. But basically, license and permits is that's the number that the mayor always holds up. It's like, oh, we're doing so great. It's his license and permits, which I didn't. I kind of thought it was going to be more of the budget, but anyways, it's 1% of the budget, which is, to me, is interesting. So that's the landlord money. That's the landlord development money, all the permitting, all that kind of money. And then the fines and forfeits is about the same amount of money. So, anyways, so that gives us a glimpse of that. Next slide, please. Oh,
Licensing and permitting is at 2 million. And that doesn't seem, I mean, it's 1%. Uh seems pretty low, you know.
yeah,
But it's interesting how with the licensing and permits, fines and forfeits are almost match it dollar for
yeah,
dollar, very close there.
yep,
It's a lot of fines. So would that also be the camera lights,
yes, I think so. I believe so. Yes,
which of course, disproportionately hits folks that are in lower income brackets, right outside of an
absolutely,
community college. Pretty crazy.
absolutely.
And West Bremerton, of course. So, gotta love that.
Okay, so the big category at the top was charges for services. So I went in and I broke those down. Um, and if you look in it, then it's about 80% of those services are coming from enterprise funds, with the rest coming from general government, internal service funds, special revenue funds. But so what, and this is the way I kind of approach it, a budget. And I think if you're looking at the purpose and overall goals of the budget, it's good to, where the big chunks going. I think you can get really mired in the details of it, but from a top, so this is really taking a top level, where's the bulk of the money going towards, and how is it being collected? How is it being collected, and where's it going? So you can see with the enterprise funds, and I've been hearing a lot of people complain about water rates and everything. And yeah, that's where a big chunk of our money's coming from. It's the water utilities, the wastewater utility, the stormwater utility. Oh, and the Gulf Mountain Golf Gold Mountain Golf Course apparently pitches in for some water. Yeah, I would love to see that compared. But anyways, more on that later, or maybe. Well,
Oh, I would love you. I would love for you to go into that.
um,
But that, yeah, you're right. That's
right.
huge, right? 15
Yeah.
million for water utility. Wastewater is more at
Right.
16 million, and then stormwater almost at 5 million. I mean, these are super huge numbers here.
Right. And the thing to keep in mind, so this is what people are getting charged. So this is generally a regressive tax, right? I assume people are going to use about this. I don't know. Would you consider that a regressive tax? And maybe did I go in? Oh, did I post that? And this
Uh,
is where we should probably. So regressive tax is a tax that really hits poor people harder than wealthy people. In other words, they end up spending you end up spending a larger percentage of your income on, say, food taxes, because a larger percentage of your income is going towards food. And so that's considered a regressive tax in that it hits the poor disproportionately in terms of your ability to pay. And Washington's known for that. I mean, there's a no income, income taxes are more progressive than property taxes and sales taxes, and so a water tax, I think it's regressive. I did look it up, and it is considered a regressive tax. So in other words, people do the poor do low income people tend to pay a lot higher their percentage of their income in water taxes. Does that make sense? Am I
yeah.
saying that right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. All right, next one.
Oh,
So
there you go, right
regressive tax.
there.
We got to slap a regressive tax on. Okay. Next category is um actually we skip to the next one too. I'm just kind of keeping track of the regressive taxes versus progressive taxes or
So let me ask you, how could the city address regressive taxing?
interesting. It's specifically with the water rates. The city council earlier this year met with a consultant who helps them set the water rates, and um, the city council was very young at the time, so I don't know if they realized what the consultant was saying. But basically, the consultant was saying that you can come up with models that address equity. You can come up with models of taxation or paying for water that go towards promoting conservation. All those are legitimate. I got the sense that they were not going to look into the wealth into the income disparities of water taxes, but you could certainly set. There's certainly ways to to make it less regressive, right? So you charge a lower tax for lower income people. Um,
No, well, my I'm just typing this in the chat here for everyone to ask them the question: how can we fix regressive
uh,
taxing?
yeah,
Uh, and so my thought is this, right? So let's say they did it by zip code, which would might be the first way to look at that. Well, I think the way that folks that are in a different tax bracket get around that, and we're a very large rental population county here, is they say, okay, your water is going to be included in your rent, and so then they charge whatever they want to charge, and then the benefit is still going toward the different tax bracket because it's
yeah,
included in the rent. So there would have to be some, caps
yeah, yeah, yeah.
on what you could do there. So um, man, they will find the workaround.
Yeah, and I will look for that report that consultant's doing, because
Mhm.
it should have some of that there. Um, so remind me about that. Okay,
Absolutely.
so the next biggest section is taxes. Um, and actually, can you go back one more slide? What was it?
Sure.
So that's taxes are about 27% of the revenue that we spend, um, which may surprise people, I guess. But and
Oh,
so yeah, go to the next one.
all right. In the chat, we got $100 a month. Her added to my rent. I'm in a 66. I'm in unit 66, and there are more. Yeah, I mean that's exactly it, right? So you're paying $1,200 a year for water, and it's like, okay, but I'm not in that tax bracket. I probably should be paying $50 a month in water. exactly it.
Okay, so taxes. 84% of it comes from the category called general government. Um, but there are also taxes that come in through special revenue funds and debt service funds and capital improvement funds. And so I didn't get in, I'm not diving deep into those because, but if you look at, so here's all the taxes and how they're broken out. So you've got retail sales and use tax, obviously regressive tax, general property tax, you've got a wastewater tax, you've got a business occupation tax. Now that one, maybe it's progressive. I don't know. I don't know. I've heard I've heard a lot of like people working from their homes now, and they're getting that seems to be hitting them hard now, and they're just trying to do the gig economy, right? So how is that
Right.
hitting gig economy? So some of this is kind of a guess on regressive and progressive. Water utility tax, electric utility tax, garbage, solid waste. So you see all the amounts that come in for all these taxes, but the big one is retail sales and property tax, right? That's 60% of the taxes that are collected and then used for the city. And when you think about retail sales, especially when I think about like down here on MLK,
Hmm.
you think about this because they have to go to 7-Eleven. There's no place to go for food except for 7-Eleven down here. And when you think about the taxes that place must take in, all that should be counted towards, should be going directly back to this community, if you ask me. But
Absolutely.
so anyway, so again, if you go to the next slide, this is another regressive tax. So the poor, low income people are getting hit twice now. And then the next one is other revenue. And this one, oops, go back one. Other revenue. Most of this comes from, again, enterprise funds. And this is, okay, so I think this is an accounting thing. Like all the money's collected in taxes for the water and sewer and all that stormwater. And then I think it's put into funds that then are drawn on. And I think that's what this is, but I'm not positive. But again, it's a lot of money going towards water
Hmm.
um, and stormwater. Um, and again, you got the Gold Mountain Golf putting in their water chunk.
So
Uh,
let me ask you, Jeff. So is Gold Mountain Golf is owned by the city?
yes. Yes.
So, but we're paying the water tax for the golf course. The citizens are.
It gets confusing. I it comes out of their. I mean, they have church dues and stuff. Yeah, I would have to dig. I'm not a golfer, so I don't, and I just know that we have a golf course, and I always wonder if that's the best use of city resources,
Well, I don't.
especially if you're spending so much on water. But I don't want golfers. I know how they are too, so I don't.
Well, how about we triple the water usage and put
Uh,
on the equivalent to tiny homes. We could probably house every
yeah,
homeless person here in the county on that course.
yep.
But that's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole nother. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing with water is, and you'll see that in the expenditure side, there is a lot of expenditures for water. Um, and I don't know, I'm new to the area, but it seems like it rains all the time here. Is there really, we're at the top of the water chain. Why are we spending so much money for water and words? I don't know I don't get the water situation here. But we're surrounded by water, it feels like. But again, I moved up here from Las Vegas, so it was a stark contrast. I was like, I don't know what you guys are worried about up here. We got dead
Elizabeth
buddies.
Elizabeth says she loves the tiny home community on a golf course. I mean, you wouldn't even have to remove every golf course, but it's prime real estate. The land is spectacular, and if you just did that, and two in each county, probably cut homelessness by 60-70% immediately, and that's probably an underestimate on my thought. I mean, it's acres and acres and acres of prime real estate. I digress. You want me to go to the next slide?
Yes. Sorry. All right. So this gets another regressive tax. All right. So, and we can go to the next slide. And so this is what we're saying. Okay, so if you look at all of them, you got regressive, other revenue. It's kind of water, so it's neutral. Intergovernmental, that's neutral, I would say too. Licensing and permits, like I said, that's from the people doing. That's from the wealthy basically, and the fines and forbearance, they're from the poor basically. So those kind of balance out. So if you're looking at equity, it kind of looks like what the picture shows of reality on the right.
Mm-hmm.
um, the people who are least able to pay are getting, you're going even deeper. And so
That's
it's my interpretation. Of
again,
what's
I haven't seen this illustration before, and this is it, right? We think about our CEOs and then the workers, right? You got the CEO here on the left that's 1,000 boxes high, and the regular workers that are sitting here, oftentimes, using and applying for SNAP benefits and other social services because they can't meet their basic needs. And then here on the far right, liberation is, hey, you know what? There are no barriers at all. All right. Oh, I like that.
So in terms of who's paying, okay, so that's obviously the low income people are paying more. So okay, so maybe they're picking it up on maybe we're spending, maybe they're getting more of the money that's being spent, but that does not seem to be the case. So where is the money going? Here's the big buckets for where the money's going to: supplies and services. It's going to personnel, capital outlay, transfers, and debt service. So about 80% comes from those first three categories. So that's kind of what I would look at in the next slides. Um, and you'll see that there's one big department that keeps coming up over and over again: law enforcement.
Mm.
Law enforcement, supplies and services. They're between them. They're 13% of the budget for services and supplies, but they're also part of this non-departmental expenditures. Over on that, there's a whole $1 million that's in that side for care and custody of prisoners, which I also consider part of law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other big question he has that I'm following up on is, where did these ARPA funds go? I know they have an accounting, and I think I saw it once, but I want to look at it again because I don't recall much of it going to homeless people at all. I think a 500, I know $500,000 of it went to the convention center. I,
Really?
so I'm gonna, anyways, more on that later.
Okay.
Um, yeah, yeah. So anyway, so here you can see, so it's non-departmental, and a lot of that was driven by that ARPA, whatever they spent that on. If you go to the next, and then law enforcement and fire and emergency are the top ones.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of,
Sorry.
just spend
Yeah.
some time looking at these. So
Oh,
non-departmental is 8.6 million, and you pull that out here to the right. And so we'll
right.
look at those ARPA funds a little bit later. Care and custody of prisoners. The care part is interesting. But the street fund operations, transportation capital, contingency reserve. What is that, like, just emergency funding?
I think so. Yeah. Oh, and
Okay.
there's the housing. Yeah, that's right. That's where they put the housing. This is the only thing I could find for low income housing was this chunk right here, or these two chunks.
Those 2, mhm, and then rental assistance, only 100,000, right, for rental
Right.
assistance, and then affordable housing for, weather, and then Kitsap Lake, which I don't know
Yeah.
what's going toward Kitsap Lake, but, that's really interesting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then over here on the left, like you said, the second largest expenditure, 13%, is for law enforcement, but they're also in the bucket of care and custody, as you said, because you're counting that, and then also for the police and fire pensions. So if you were to split that up
Right.
and give them both 1%, so that's quite a bit there. Um, and then fire, emergency, and medical, 1.4 million. General facilities, community development seems a little bit low to me also here at just under $100 million there. General parks is almost at a million. The municipal court, engineering, financial services, the legal department, $500,000 there. Executive. Is this the mayor here under
That's his
executive?
yeah, supplies, and these are supplies and services for his office for these offices. Yes.
And then city council. Now, and surprisingly, I would say that seems low for, um, for the office, for the city councilor and for the
Well, this
executive.
is
I don't know what you think.
pens and paper and stuff like that, right? I don't. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to. I'm not sure what goes into supplies and services,
Mhm.
but most of that, I think that most of that's personnel costs, which we'll see later.
Gotcha, okay, now Imma go to the next one. Alright, so now we're looking at personnel. Go ahead there.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, so this is looking, and again, law enforcement is 31% of the budget when you look at personnel costs, and then the other another 30% for fire and medical emergency. Um, I don't understand why there's $1,500,000 in here for police fire pension for
Mm.
personnel. I and I just don't know what that's about. Are we paying? That seems like a large staff for for someone to just manage a pension fund, but I'm not sure what that is. I'm going to find out. Um, and a few interesting notes. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, and that's different from the actual
Right.
pension, right? So here,
Right.
again, police and fire pension, whoops, sorry about that, is $437,000, and here it looks like it takes, 3 times that amount to actually administer the pension. Is that how you're looking at that?
Yeah, and I don't. Yeah, yeah, and I'm not sure if that. And it may be that that is the actual. That it may be that now that I'm thinking about it, I bet it's that the supplies are like again whatever
That's
paper,
that's
pencil, stuff.
managing the pension, and this is the actual pension.
That's what I'm
That could
thinking
be
now
what it
that I'm
is?
looking at
Okay.
this. Yeah, yeah. Um,
That would
and
definitely
and
make more sense.
And I'm yeah. I'm all for pensions, and you do the work, you deserve your pay. But speaking of pay, so who gets the top hourly rate in the city? The police chief and fire chief at $81.92 an hour plus benefits. Who gets the lower hourly rate? Our city council members. They make
Wow.
about $10 an hour with no benefits.
Wow.
The mayor makes 54.81 an hour plus benefits. Um, this is something interesting to me is that we there was just a study released showing that the livable wage for our area was like $30 an hour. I think you actually covered him on with the show with Kirsten and um, them. I think it was 30, so it's like $30 an hour. So if you look at the
Mhm.
numbers of city employees that are getting paid less than there's 77 or approximately 20% of all city employees are making less than $30 an hour. So they're making less than a living wage. Out of yeah, so that's 300 and something employees, almost 400 employees, I think. And so how does that figure? We shouldn't we as a city be at least paying a living wage and setting the example for um, I don't know. I feel like we should. I feel like the city should be paying for a livable wage to people. And
This is incredible. I'm just typing the formula in the chat for everyone. So,
ah,
if you're working 40 hours a week and there's 52 weeks in a year, that's 2,080 hours, assuming you don't take any vacations. So, if you multiply 2,080 hours by the $81.92, you come up with, wait for it, wait for it, wait for it, $170,393.60. Is that what the chief of police is making?
I think that may be off somewhere. Where is it? Hold on, I have it here somewhere. Sounds a little high to me, but let's see.
I do believe that the, commissioners are making what, 130?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Mhm. Wolf and Garrido and, Gelder for the county.
Oh, I can't find it.
So that's huge. Now do you think that is including the benefits? Did you calculate is that why it's
No,
so high?
that's it says it's salary, so
Hmm.
I'm assuming that's plus benefits. Um,
That is that's a lot of money.
oh, I know what I did. So the my calculation was to do so what did I say? So if you do 8192 times 40 hours a week times 52 weeks.
Yep. So
Is that the same
89,
thing?
yep, times 40 times 52. Yep, exact same number.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, so that's and I want to say the engineers are making really again math. Take as much math as you can, kids, because they're getting six figures too. The engineers but to not I don't know just I feel like people should be being paid a living wage, and that um, anyways. So that's personnel.
So it seems like some balance here would be to take
Yeah.
some of this hourly from the police and fire chief and push that to some to the city council members, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know, or maybe you
Maybe
can
the
raise.
$20 an hour.
Yeah, well, I my own personal bias is I think that elected officials should make the median income for the city. They should be tied to the median income, and but other employees like chief of police, that's a pretty heavy administrative position. So I think you would I don't know, and engineers you got if you want people who are good engineers, I don't know. I think um I'm more worried about the minimum, like set the minimum rate, and I'm less worried about what maximum rate is that people get.
Mm.
Um,
Well, I guess that would be one way where they can fix it because you're in the box that you have there. The number of employees making less than a livable wage for Bremerton, $30 an hour plus benefits is 77. So if you
right.
reallocated some of that, right, and that is the redistribution of wealth, said, okay, yes, it should get paid at a higher rate, but the floor can only,
Yeah,
has to
yeah,
be at that median income, like you said. So you pull all that 20% of city employees to that bar, and then you do your distribution, and then you just make sure that the floor is always keeping up with
yeah,
cost of living and yada yada yada, and then you go up from there. Would be a quick solve
yeah.
for that, it sounds like to me.
Yeah. Okay. The next one, capital outlays. This is where money. And then going back to the equity issue again on personnel. So, if you can you go back to the personnel. So if you were to look at that through an equity lens, or where who's getting served by, it's pretty much there. And it's the same all around. Everybody has same access to the parks. Everybody has same access to the all the stuff, right? There's
Mhm.
nothing that's helping people who needed help. I would say. Um,
Well, and that's where React was coming in, right? And
right.
looking at the video from Aaron Leidick there saying, hey, this needs to be looked at through a racial equity lens. And then we
Yeah.
need to have input on that before the budget is set.
Yeah, and what we can see here is that from an economic equity stance, you can't. There's definitely not equity.
Mhm.
From a racial equity, we don't really have the data, but I've seen the correlations. Um, but they could be looking at that. They could absolutely be estimating which populations are served by each one of these dollar figures, and that could absolutely be a calculation. How many, what is the racial ethnic makeup of people who go to the golf course? What is the racial ethnic so you could get to that equity measure. And I'm a data guy, so I love measures like that. Um, I don't know if they're gonna. I don't know. I don't know if they're moving that direction or not, or whether. But
Well, and I think some of the argument might be there is like, okay, so culturally, uh, you know, we like basketball, so we would want basketball courts, or maybe you want skate parks.
uh,
Uh, but the golf course generates income where a basketball court may not. So, but you're saying equity would be, well, you need to invest in the basketball courts also and not just the golf courses
yeah,
and give people
yeah,
their recreational outlet that they actually like and want to participate in. Because golf is an expensive sport, right?
Yeah. Okay, we can go on to the next one, I think. Yep. And again, capital outlays. Got a lot of money going in for water and wastewater and stormwater. Um, but we all already kind of talked about all the water stuff. Um, and there's going to be a lot of politics around water. I just haven't dug into it deep enough yet. But water's always been a political issue, right? In terms of who gets it and who doesn't, and who pays and who doesn't, um,
The
especially out
quality of the
west.
water.
Yeah. Okay, next one, city council. Oh, I thought that was interesting. So, if you look through, there's so each one of the departments has, what are their highlights? What are their big things? And so this is mostly written by the mayor. So, it just kind of cracked me up. Then on the left is what he says. This is what the budget highlights are for the legislative department for the city council is to provide legislative direction and leadership to ensure the delivery of quality services to the citizens of Bremerton, and to support mayor's initiatives by adequately funding city departments or operations and projects. Of course, on the right is what the actual city charter says the city council is responsible for. I just I
Well,
was
if you don't mind, I'm gonna read that
yeah,
because a lot
yeah,
of
okay.
us, I mean, you would have to dig for
Yeah,
this and look for it specifically, right?
yeah.
So the charter says this: Section 12, powers vested in council. Council shall have power to organize and regulate its internal affairs, to define the functions, power, and duties of the city's officers and employees, to fix the compensation and working conditions of such officers and employees, and establish and maintain civil service or merit systems, retirement and pension systems not in conflict with state law or this charter. Council may adopt and enforce ordinances relating to and regulating its local or municipal affairs and appropriate to the good of the government of the city, and pursuant to state law may impose penalties of fine or imprisonment or both for the violation of such ordinances, constituting a misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor as provided therein. Council may provide that violation of such shall constitute a civil violation subject to monetary penalty. Council shall have all legislative powers possible for a city or a town to have under the Constitution of this state. By way of illustration and not to limitation, such powers may be exercised in regard to acquisition, sale, ownership, improvement, maintenance, protection, restoration, regulation, use, leasing, disposition, vacation, abandonment, or beautification of public ways, real property of all kinds, waterways, structures, or any other improvement or use of real or personal property. Such powers may be exercised in regard to all aspects of collective bargaining, in the rendering of social, cultural, recreational, educational, governmental, or corporate services, including operating and supplying of utilities and municipal services commonly or conveniently rendered by cities or towns. In addition, and not in limitation, council shall have an authority given to any class of municipality or all municipalities of this state, such authority to be executed in the manner provided, if any, by the granting statute. Within constitutional limitations, council shall have within the city corporate limits all the powers and taxation for local purposes allowed by state law, amended by election 11-8-11. Woo, that's a lot of power.
That's a lot of power
That's a lot of power.
for somebody who gets only $10 an hour.
That's a lot of power. Wow.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I wanted to read that because you look at it and,
Yeah.
and folks are probably like listening on their car, getting ready for church or whatever the case may be. And it's like they got a lot of power, folks. That's power.
They have a lot of power, but they have no money and no support.
Yes.
Yeah. So, oh, I'm bummed that this picture is being censored. It must be, I don't know, weird.
Copyright, probably.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Okay. Um, so again, this is kind of going on the spending side. So what we see is, spending for water and sewer, all the things you would do for a city. Money. We're spending money to collect taxes. We're spending money. Um, but the social welfare spending, we found what, $200,000 that was kind of dedicated to low income housing, um, versus 17 million for police spending. We're obviously counting on our police for way too much. We're having them carry all these boulders, which if you can see the picture, um, they're having to deal with mental health crisis. They're having to deal with addictions. They're having to deal with family disputes. All these things that should be handled by medical professionals, by mental health professionals. We need to start paying for those services, and maybe that number will come down for the police, because this whole, you know, force people out of being mentally ill is just not going to work. Um, and that's just and so I think there is room in this budget, but it's going to take a huge change in thinking at the city level of what the purpose of our taxes is. There seems to be a pretty strong belief, if you're looking, if you're looking for a goals and purpose in this budget document, it's nothing about helping people. I mean, there's this it's almost pushes back on any chance to help, like give anybody something that everybody's not getting. And I don't know what, and I would love to have the mayor just speak his point of view about this, or I would love to have an open conversation, because we all know this is what the conversation is. If you give people, why give something people I don't have? Yeah, they're going to get something they don't deserve. All these false narratives about what's happening. And I think that the welfare of our low income citizens should be at least a priority for our city, and it's not right now, based on the budget. Right,
What
that's
I
me.
really appreciate about your analysis here is you're not attacking the police, right? This isn't defund the police. That's not what you're
Right.
saying at all. What you're saying is unburden the police. They've got too much on their shoulders. And so if you take, many of these boulders off of their proverbial backs, right, then they can, get to the business of protecting and serving as they do. They're not overtaxed. They're not emotionally stressed out. They don't feel like they're being attacked, which would undoubtedly allow them to do their jobs more effectively, right, and build community with the community and relationship, which I think is really important. And then, as you said, those services to social welfare is really, more adequately helping folks that are in mental health crisis and getting the services that they need: housing, shelter, education, yada yada yada. It get just on and on and on. So I love your analysis on that, because it wasn't an attack on the police, right?
Um, and what I think a really good example is the mental health navigator.
Hmm.
So the state allowed cities and counties to collect a 1.5% tax to be used for mental health purposes. All of that was directed to mental health navigators in the Bremerton Police Department. Um, on the face of it, you picture somebody going in, and the real purpose was, as the police chief said during when they were deliberating, giving that doing taking that money and giving it to the BPD for these mental health navigators. When they were discussing that, they were very clear. This wasn't about mental health. They had no interest in tracking the health outcomes of these people. What their goal was, what they called force multipliers. This allowed them to have somebody else do the paperwork for the guys with the guns, so they could get the guys with the guns back out on the streets. That was their focus. It's still, so they're taking, even when the state is saying, here, you can have some money to actually help with mental health, the mayor is saying, takes that money and says, oh, we can use that for law enforcement. And so everything just immediately goes to law enforcement. And
Mm.
that's it's not helping, and it's not healthy. And I just hope that I don't know. I hope we can turn that around in this city, because it's not. We know where that leads. We know that just leads to mass incarceration. It just leads to more problems. We've been down this road. Let's try something different. And I
Well,
think the budget is the place to start looking at that.
if you guys are interested, I will reach out to the Birmingham Police Department and see if we can't get the navigator on and talk about what they're doing and how they're doing it. Because I think that's important. That this position is kind of, I would say, relatively new nationwide, right? Putting in navigators, probably what, post George Floyd, would you say?
Yeah, I think it was. Well, I don't know. I don't know the Navigator program much. I know that I've seen a lot of better programs where it is strictly mental health responders. So you have a number where you can actually call for mental, like Montgomery County, Maryland. Again,
Yeah.
always a good example to go through for progressive, good government policies. Is they have a mental health response unit that responds. And so that you don't have the police showing up for most of their mental health calls, um and so but that's not what this mental health navigators are about. That's not what they're doing. Like I said, they're just freeing up. There's somebody to sit with the person at the hospital so the police can get back on the streets.
And what's unfortunate about
Oops, I
that?
can't hear you. Is your mic on, or is it my?
Can you hear me?
There you go.
All right. Well, what I was going to say was I was just watching this morning a police fatally shoot a black man threatening suicide. And so they didn't allow the clergy, they didn't allow his mother to talk to him. He did have a gun, but they just ended up shooting him dead. And, having a navigator on scene could have prevented that. And so there's an irony in.
Oh, your volume is low. It isn't just me.
My volume is low.
Oh, there you go. Whoa, there you are.
Is that better?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So what I was saying, I'll just restate it. Is I was just watching an article this morning about a police fatality for a black man who was threatening suicide, and they would not allow his mother or clergy to come and talk with him because that was a policy violation. And so instead of having the navigator there or people that knew and loved him talk him down, they just ended up shooting and killing him. And so that this really speaks to the issue. And we hear these stories throughout the country, uh, like weekly at this point, and mental health continues to deteriorate. So, yeah, these navigators are critical. So I will reach out and see if the navigator will come on. I did meet one of the officers that was transitioning to a position of navigator. So I can't recall his name now, but I will reach out to him and see if he'll come on and talk about that. So, yeah, thank you for bringing that up there.
And moving forward with this budget stuff, there's a lot to digest. So I would urge people, share this with people, look at it, and I don't know, maybe we can do like a roundtable to talk about the budget. Get some people on, because it'd be great to see a little more conversation going on about the.
Well, we have to, right? What you're
Right.
saying is again, when is it? When do we get this time to kind of review it? October they
October.
present.
Yeah.
So it's August 14th now. So we've
Right.
got literally about,
Right.
45 days or so for the community to dig through this budget, understand it, come together and say, "Hey, this is where money needs to go, or this is where you need to take money away from, or this is how you need to combat regressive taxing." These things are really important. So this is what we want you to do, and we want you to do it now and look at the budget through an equity lens, which was what React was supposed to do. And one thing I'll say here also is when you're thinking about React, and yes, it is based on racial equity, but they typically tend to look at equity overall, right? Um, so just that conversation that was had with city council and them shooting down, changing the language and not making it race equity and wanting it to be all equity. The folks there tend to look at all those things regardless. But yeah, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
All right, so I pulled this up for you.
Oh yeah, and this came up again in your conversation with Kitsap. Okay. What is Kirsten's?
Kitsap County. She is the
Thank you.
housing. I don't know exactly what her title is. It's a huge
Yeah.
title.
Anyways, with your discussion this week, they brought up these urban rest stops that they have in Seattle. So if nothing, these are like a couple $100,000 to set up a bathrooms and showers and so they have a whole model here for it. Um, so maybe at least another 200,000 to $400,000 a year. I think we could afford to take 2 million off of our. If we've got $50 million left over, let's take 2 million and like really try to help people. But again, I'm not an accountant. I don't
So
know.
so
But
so two things. One, Kristen Jewell is the housing and homelessness
ah,
uh, division manager, and that title really doesn't do her justice because she does so much. And then the other thing I was gonna say is, man, you only want 2 million out of the
I
54.
don't know. Right. Well, yeah.
I mean, it's a crisis, right? It's its
Yeah,
own
yeah,
pandemic. It's like
yeah.
we need to hit this thing hard, and it's like, oh, you know, hey, how about you give us, $2 million? All right,
Uh,
well, 10% is 5.4. So you're
yeah.
asking for, like 2%. Just give us 2% of
Uh,
the surplus. Like, no, at this point, we need to resolve this issue and bring up all of us to a baseline. So
right.
you got
Right.
54 million. Great job.
Yeah, yeah,
Calf.
yeah.
Let's address it right now.
I like it. I like it. But yeah, because that conversation has to be had, and it's not being had at the city council or the mayor's office yet. You don't see them. There's no big push to say, should we be spending more money on these, things to help people? But
Well, and my thought on that too is, you really somehow we have to address this issue, and we talk about the challenges that exist, right? The eviction assistance money is gone now. Uh, we're seeing evictions are going to increase. The job market numbers, we could be here all day talking about how that's a facade and not real. And even though people are working, it's not a livable wage. So folks are working 2 and 3 jobs trying to maintain, and it's still not enough, right? So there's so many different things to address, and we're watching mental health, physical health, everything is deteriorating. So as long as we just try to put these, and I wouldn't even call it a band-aid, right? We're just taking a napkin and trying to wipe off the blood and throw it away. We're not even really addressing the issues. We're seeing more and more people have mental health. And you know what? I think this is really hidden, but we don't talk about it. We don't talk about how many folks that are paying their mortgage, right? These are folks that can afford to pay their homes that are on prescription meds for mental health. More and more of us are not mentally sound. We're not doing well. And so it's hidden because they can go to a doctor. They've got that opportunity to do that, and they can try to medicate themselves through it. But you're seeing more and more, more and more and more people begin to suffer and decline, and we're not addressing it. We're not addressing it.
yep.
So yeah, this is awesome. Do check out the Urban Rest Stop. Uh, Kirsten was speaking to this, and to your point, I don't know how much this is, but if you did a like say a pilot program, it was like, okay, this is going to cost us $1 million a year to operate, and so we're going to commit to this for 5 years, and we're going to put a little buffer in there to make modifications as we go forward. Because you're going to try something and you're going to have to tweak it because like, oh, that's not really working out how we wanted to, and you try it for 5 years and see what happens. Right. I also wanted to know because you live down on ML King. Have you met the navigator for the Bremerton Police Department? Do you see that person?
I have not. No, I have not.
Because that seems like, building relationships with those folks, because they're so untrusting of the police, right? If you built relationships and you have partnership where, hey, I know who this person is, we have a conversation, I know what their scenario is, I can help to advocate with the other social services, whether it's mental health, whether it's physical health, Salvation Army, all of these different entities to help folks move from being homeless into being housed, right? And work on that scenario. So I think that's important. So I will reach out to the navigator.
Cool. All right.
I think we hit it all, huh?
Yeah, I did pretty good for an hour, huh?
Nah, you did. Let me give you the horn. Again,
that was some pretty dense stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think people realize what that takes. One, to find where the hell the budget is, right? The video you showed from Denise, she's holding up this huge binder and she's like, "Oh, this is so awesome." That was provided to her. That's not provided to the community. So you've got to go and dig and figure it out. And if it's that thick, that means that there's explanations on where the money's going and why it's going there and justifications. So you're doing all of that work. And then, like I said, like a technical writer, you're now putting it in a space that's digestible for all of us to take a look at and say, "Oh, okay, so that's what this is. That's what this is. Oh, why are the police getting 18% of the overall budget? Why is water such a big expenditure? What can we do? Why is this regressive? How do we address these issues?" And none of this is looked at through an equity lens. So how about we do that? And what does that look like if we were to actually do it? So shout out to you for that, Jeff.
And it was a lot of work. It took me a lot longer than I thought to go through the budget and do. And part of it is that I have a policy background, so I look at most things from a policy viewpoint, data analytically wise, and so the budgets aren't really set up to be looked at policy. So I have to read. So I had to reformat kind of all the numbers and regroup all the numbers to put them into different departments to make it say, okay, so that's where kind of from a policy. Oh, this is what we're focusing on standpoint. Because once you get with an accountant, they'll get you down to, I don't know, all these crazy charts and rates and this and that. But yeah, thank you. So thank you for giving me a chance to talk about it. I love talking about. It was good to dive into the budget too, and I was glad to hear that the city council is really diving into it, and there is a lot more discussion already this year than I've seen in previous years. So I think that's already a good thing. So.
And Elizabeth says, "This was amazing. Much gratitude." All right. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And that's interesting, right? You have folks that run for office and their wage is what, $1,000 a month, right? And again, they're making these huge decisions. And so just very interesting.
Yeah, and again, I mean, in terms of good government, usually it's not a good idea to not pay the people who are in charge of oversight of a $250 million budget. In general, it leads to corruption pretty soon. I mean, if you've got people who are broke making the decisions, and you got people who with a lot of money want you to make certain decisions, and I'm not casting any aspersions on any of our city council members, but it's just that's the way our political system is kind of developed, right?
Honestly, I think that goes the other way too, Nancy Pelosi. But we won't.
All right, good. Okay, we'll have a good talk about that. Yeah.
The rich do want to get richer. So I could use some of those stock tips, but I would actually be penalized for that. So
yes, you would. Yeah.
Just saying. All right. So we just want to let you know the next upcoming council meeting will be this Wednesday night. And what time is that? 5:30? Is that right? And again, public comment. So we love to have more people. Last week it was Jordan and Joe and Jeff and myself. And City Council took about 20 minutes to have a conversation about homelessness and housing. So if we bring our voices together, they're going to have to talk about it and address it. So I'd love to see the numbers double this Wednesday. And again, as you're listening to this, it's not just housing and homelessness. There are other issues that we need to bring to bear. And so by no means am I saying, hey, come on and talk about homelessness. You have issues that are important to you. Come on and let them know what the issues are. Participate in your community, right? And make the change that you want to see. But many voices are what makes change. And so, we can do it. You saw it, a month ago, I presented myself and there was one other person. They didn't even respond. It was crickets. 2 weeks ago, 4 of us responded, 20 minutes of the conversation. And so we can continue to move and push them in the direction that we want them to go. So I just encourage you to participate. Again, that is this Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. on the Conduit in every space, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube. Do make sure that you subscribe, like, share, hit the bell so you never miss out on a show. And if you're not getting the alerts, please unsubscribe and then resubscribe because they probably are shadow banning us because they don't like what we got to say. Just saying, that's how it goes. So I'm gonna put it on there. That's what happened to Rob, right? He was like, "Hey, I'm not getting the alerts." And if you guys notice, Rob is always in the beginning saying, "Hey, gentlemen, your sound and your video sounds great." And he's like, "I'm not getting the alert." So he had to unsubscribe and resubscribe. But hit the reminder bell and do that so that you never miss a show. But again, I'm gonna give you the last word there, Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah, ask the city council this week to put some money up for this stuff, and honestly, they want to work with us. I mean, the city council's with us, so we're good.
All right, there you go. That's the last word. So for Jeff Campbell, I am Marwan Cameron. This is the Conduit. This is the Civic Second. We'll see you Wednesday night. Goodbye, everybody.